Good evening, everybody, or late afternoon, whichever you prefer. It is 4 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started to make sure we get everybody out of here in time before the rain really starts coming down. So please let the minutes show that we have 4 out of 5 board members present. Ms. Pimentel is currently attending a conference in Chicago. We wish her well. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. President, there are no changes.
Okay. With that, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I was handed a call to the public for this evening, so Ms. Rodriguez, and while you're coming up. The public is invited to address the board on any issue within its jurisdiction, subject to a reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Governing board members are not permitted to discuss or take legal action on matters raised during open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. However, the law permits board members to do the following at the conclusion of open call to the public. A, respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board. B, ask staff to review the matter, or C, ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. Those wishing to address the board should complete a call to the public form and submit it to the board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will be provided 3 minutes to address the board unless provided other direction by the board. At the outset of the speaker's remarks, the speaker should state their name, and the board requests that the speaker provide his or her address.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexa Rodriguez. Do you want my address now or at the end?
Now's fine.
Okay. My address is 20 East Calle, Tierra Serena in Sahuarita, Arizona, 85629. Okay. Members of the board, Mr. President, good afternoon. My name is Alexa Rodriguez, and my resignation is on today's agenda. I'm here to ask you to not assess the liquidated damages fee against me. When I signed my contract for the 2022-23 school year, I did so in good faith. I did not know that months later my fiance would get the job offer of his dreams 3 hours away. As soon as I knew that I would be moving, I informed my principal. I did this before I started applying for new jobs so that she would have the most time possible to find another person to fill the position. And this occurred before the 2021-22 school year had concluded. I had several weeks worth of personal time and sick days accrued. Even though I knew that these would not be paid out, I did not burn my days. I continued to act in good faith as a dedicated employee of the district. I'm asking for my fiance's promotion and therefore my household promotion to be considered as grounds for exemption from the liquidated damages fee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on for the consent agenda, are there any items that members would like to have pulled or discussed? All right, with that, a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. The consent agenda passes. Moving on to the next item, reports and informational items. Mr. Berrigan, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mrs. Valadez will provide you with an overview and a presentation on the principal and teacher evaluation ratings. Just to put it in perspective and as a friendly reminder that this presentation and this evaluation, I believe, has been fairly consistent the last 3 to 4 years. You're going to see some minor changes. The recommendation is that the governing board that administration will present the report, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Valdez.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Berrigan. It's time for our teacher and principal evaluation performance update. I know I should really change the slides because it is, other than the numbers, the same still evaluation instrument and information. So I'll go through it not like high speed, but again, here's the teacher evaluation components. 67% of the evaluation is based on the teacher's classroom performance, and then the other 33% is based on the school performance and growth data. And then that's put together to determine the overall final evaluation rating. These are the different domains of the instrument. So it's the facilitation, engagement, environment, the planning, and the professionalism. And then within each of those domains are the different elements that go along with it. So like there's the objectives go in with the planning part, or with facilitation are they teaching to the objectives? So all those different elements lie within the different domains there. Then the 33% is based on the school performance and growth data, so the school letter grades, which have been consistent these past few years because they haven't changed in that. We had the AZM2 data. Even though they took the AASA this school year, these ratings are based on the AZM2, so it's the data from last year. So the letter grade carried over. Then it's the Azella reclassification and the state assessment data that all come into this part of the rating. These are the ratings for this school year. As you can see, they're right there, the highly effective, developing, and ineffective. Those are the different ratings that are on our instrument. And this is the final classification rating off of the evaluation instruments. The principals evaluation is the same setup, the 67% about the performance part, and then the 33% is on the data piece. These are the principal evaluation standards. They also have then elements within, each of those different domains, or each of those standards as well, are broken out there on that one. And it goes up to, within the 6 domains, there's like maybe 4 elements up to, to 3 elements. So it just varies through each of the standards. Then again, with the data portion, you can see it's the same data portion as the teacher evaluation instrument as well, goes into that part. And then here's the principals ratings for this 21-22 school year. And that concludes the evaluation ratings that, per policy and state statute, is to be presented to the board every school year.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Valdez.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, revised regulation GCCF-R for sabbatical leave.
Mr. President, members of the board, we're going to make a reference to, I think the last time it was the Debbie show. So we're going to go, Mrs. Valadez will continue, and we'll talk about the revised regulation.
I know, and I don't know if it was Ms. Smith or Ms. Bartels that I was supposed to have a scarf or hats or something as I kept changing as I went through here. Again, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Berrigan. On the sabbatical leave, as I've shared before, we are really making sure in our leadership team meetings through our department that we're reviewing each policy to make sure it's aligned to state statutes, or if there's changes that need to be made. So on the sabbatical leave, on the regulation is where the changes are recommended. You can see that it had administrative services. We don't have an administrative services department, so it's educational services. The first letter A, that language comes straight out of the statute in regards to sabbatical leave, which is statute 15-510. So that's where that language came from. On the next page, which will now be letter F, The blue also came straight out of statute language, so we put that in there as well. The next section where the date had said February 1st and now says March 15th, that's so that'll align to the policy, because policy we have says March 15th, so we're just aligning it to the policy so that it matches that. Then where it says the formula for pay when they return, the formula for pay will be based on the difference, because they could possibly get paid, between the employee's current placement on the salary schedule. We're stepless now after initial placement, so we don't have a placement salary schedule that an employee is on once they've been hired. So that's why that language is removed, and it's just salary, based on their salary. And then the last part that's crossed out in the orangish color is because it's already stated previously in the regulation language. And those are just the recommended revisions to the regulation.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right. Moving on to our first action item, MOU.
Mr. President, members of the board, it is recommended the governing board approve the memorandum of understanding with Teach for America for the 22-23 and 23-24 school year as presented. As many of you know, we've had a partnership and a relationship with Teach for America for the last, I think we're going on 12, 13 years now. And so it's the staff's recommendation that you approve that. If you have any questions, Mrs. Valdez would be happy to answer those.
How many years has it been since you've been able to get someone placed?
This is our first year where they've given us 0.
Also, it was just only 1 year? Okay.
This is the first time. At least the other ones they've given us at least 2, but this year nothing, but there's still time, so they may come through.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding Teach for America for the 2022-2023 and 2023-2024 school years.
And a second?
Second.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion's passed. Thank you. Moving on, the proposed expenditure budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Mr. Berrigan, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, I can just tell you that it's been an interesting legislative session. You're going to hear from us how we've developed the budget, the logic behind that. It is recommended the governing board approve the proposed expenditure budget for fiscal year 22-23 as presented. Mrs. Cadavel and I will give you a 35-minute presentation is what we, I think, timed it at. So I'm kidding. But yes, if Mrs. Cadavel will join me at the podium. Mr. President, members of the board, we wanted to give you an overview of the average daily membership, which I know that you understand is what we use to build the budget. And we wanted to give you fiscal year 22s, the yellows where we did the revision last May, to give you an idea of how that ADM has and will fluctuate and what those projections are. Pre-pandemic, we believe that would be about 10,002. Now, the proposed budget is using 8,952 students. And that takes into account the 100th day and the projected decrease in enrollment. As you all know, we use applied economics to provide us a demographic study. So we did kind of build that in based on that information. And you're going to see that in 2024 and 25, the red represents what we believe could be the new ADM in the future compared to the blue bar to the left, which was the pre-pandemic estimate. And then you can see that in 2026, it starts to level off, and you're talking about a decrease of anywhere from 0.75% to 8% based on what we know. And you're going to hear a full presentation by Mr. Bramer at the next board meeting. So we want to set the stage so that you understand kind of that enrollment. You're going to see this slide again in the presentation because we're going to add additional information to that.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. When I started to prepare the budget for fiscal year 23, I did have to use assumptions since we did not have work papers from the Auditor General. So the assumption would be that over across the state that there would be $500 million allocated to the base support level, and then $100 million to address special education, $100 million to address poverty, $30 million of an increase in district additional assistance, and that we would continue to keep the teacher compensation portion in there. What actually came out of the budget talks that concluded early this morning, that there would be $526 million added to the base level support, that special ed would be phased in over the next 3 years at 100, 104, and 109 million. That there would be poverty addressed at 50 million, 63 million, and 100 million over the next 3 years. And district additional assistance. We obviously planned a little low. It came in at 60 million, 89 million, and 118 million over the next 3 years. And teacher comp was removed from the budget.
Mr. President, members of the board, so again, we did what we believed in good faith would be a possibility in building this year's budget. As you can see, and what's going to happen at that July 14th board meeting, the numbers that you have will change to reflect the budget that was approved this morning. And so you're going to see that change. We think we're going to be pretty close in the end to what we proposed to what was to what is now, factual information on funding for next year. So just please note that July 14th, you're going to see those numbers change again.
Let me ask you a question. So did they change statutory the date for this year? Because on here it says you have to have it no later than July 5th. Has that been postponed yet or not?
Mr. President, members of the board, Member Smith, currently the way that the language that was adopted this morning, it gives flexibility to school districts. So if you've already adopted using a portion or some of these assumptions, it really kind of gives you to, I believe, August 1st to make those changes so that you can set the tax rate with the appropriate counties. So it gives you like a retroactive clause to protect the districts and allowing them to budget accordingly. The July 5th, and I think the July 15th question in particular, I don't recall seeing that in the language other than saying that a school district has the ability up until August 1st to work with their counties to set that tax rate accordingly. I don't believe that July 5th and July 15th have actually changed, but it does imply some flexibility so that you can budget accordingly if you've already budgeted. Whereas for us today, we're proposing, and that's going to change. Because remember that between the proposed and the adopted, those numbers can't increase. They can decrease. So this is why flexibility, and there was some language added this morning to allow school districts to navigate this long legislative session.
And based on the assumptions that we had, it increased our RCL from our last FY22 revised up to $58,786,494, and the override increased as a result of that increase in the RCL. We're expecting our budget balance carry forward to be about $2 million. There is a negative adjustment to move energy savings out of M&O. So that's a negative adjustment, and then the Prop 123 add-on of $255,000. So our overall M&O is $69,976,535.
Mr. President, members of the board, the reason that you have the ADM slide again is so that you can start to think about how do we navigate when we're expected to decrease and yet there is a funding increase. And so really what we want is to communicate that the next 3 years, you're looking at about an 11% decrease in enrollment. So over the next 10 years, we're looking at about 17, 18%. The biggest decreases are happening over the next 3 years. So how are we financially responsible as there's an increase so that we can get over the next what we believe are going to be the most difficult years over the next 10 years? The question that we need to ask, and I would encourage you to ask when Applied Economics is here at the July 14th board meeting, is what impact will the pandemic have on birth rates? Will that decrease it? So if the question is, or the answer is, we believe or he believes that the pandemic will reduce birth rates in future years, then we need to start thinking about how is that projected decrease going to look? Is it going to decrease even further in the next 4 to 5 years? Because historically, when there's a recession, birth rates decrease. And then the question is, what impact does the pandemic have? And I would encourage you to ask when we meet with Applied Economics at the July 24th meeting. What we wanted to show you here is that when we adopted and you approved of that last year, it was about 9.1 million. You're looking at 9.7, 9.8 in the final revision in May. You're looking at about 11.1, 11.2 million. Part of the reason for that is really we're moving into updating a lot of our technologies. I'm going to call them the old smart boards. I know that's not the correct term, but we're working on that. We're updating a lot of our antiquated technology, whether those are the copy machines. So we're going to have to invest over the next year or two towards technology, and so we're going to have to put money there to meet those needs. In some cases, some of our providers can't service the antiquated machines anymore.
We will be levying in FY23 for adjacent ways, and because of that, we provide a truth in taxation notice to the community. The notice on the left is from last year, which shows $50.12, and the 23 notice, which will go out on June 30th in the Glendale Star, shows a $47.52 tax rate. So, or is it a tax increase?
Mr. President, members of the board, the reason that you have these two notices side by side is imagine you're reading the Glendale Star, which again, it's required to be publicized, and you're reading the one on the right, and it says if your property taxes on a 100,000 home will be $47.52, had we not done this, it would have been $31.05. It's implying that that's a significant increase. And so what I believe that this is misleading. I think it's misleading to you. I think it's misleading to the public. So what we want to do is show you where it was last year. So you live in the district, you're paying taxes, $50.12. This upcoming year, you're going to be $47.52. So in the end, you're going to be paying less. But the way that it's worded, I believe it's misleading. And so we want to have that side by side and let the public make up its own mind on really what that looks like.
And this is the proposed tax rate for fiscal year 23. The primary tax rate does reduce, and the secondary tax rate, it goes up slightly. So overall, the difference is 20 cents in the total tax rate.
Mr. President, members of the board, as you guys all know, that we believe this is what the tax rate will be. We will work with our county officials, and then they will work with the Board of Supervisors to set the final tax rate. And we usually try to report that back as soon as we have that information to you. Typically, it's in the next budget revision. So on the cover sheet, this number may change just slightly. Mr. President, members of the board, we just wanted to kind of give you a perspective of where district additional assistance has been. You're looking at about 4.7 last year, or technically this current school year, it was fully restored. So again, when we built the budget, we assumed that there would be a $30 per pupil increase, which we thought would be about a 6.6% increase. But you're seeing that that's actually greater than what we even believed. And so again, in that July 14th, you're going to see this number increase. My guess is you're looking at about 10, maybe 11% increase. And just so that everyone doesn't lose sight of the reductions that occurred from 2009 to 21, you're looking at almost $42 million. Almost $39 million of that was capital funding. We also wanted to provide you just kind of an outlook on where we believe we're going to be in January. Prop 206 requires minimum wage to increase by inflation. You're going from about $12.80 to about $14.10. That's just an estimate now. It's going to impact about 352 positions, which could result in about $508,000. And just remember that every year that there's this inflation, that number is going to increase. The number of employees that are impacted will be increased. Inflation continues to rise. And so we want to be mindful of that. As inflation increases, the expense increases, and at some point it becomes unmanageable. Increased competition, decreased enrollment, as you well know, decreases revenue. What's helping us really is that increase in funding. You're talking about, I think the latest number that I heard this morning, you're talking about $1.2 billion of what I believe is real new money for next year. Again, we're going to continue to be efficient, closely monitor expenditures. We're going to present some things to you in the upcoming board meetings on how to be overall more efficient, to reduce our M&O expenses. The M&O override that Mrs. Scottabile talked about was $7.4 million last year, this year, and it's going to go up to about $9 million. And it's because that base support level amount has increased. It's scheduled to decrease on July 1st of 25 if voters don't approve of it sometime between now and then. Statutorily, it has to be reduced by a third. Then it reduces by another third in the second, or it would be in the sixth year. Just final thoughts as we start to close or finalize the presentation bonds. The things that you have seen happen throughout the district the last 7 or 8 years have only been possible because of the bond and the support of our taxpayers. We need to continue to upgrade facilities, to renovate them, and to just address those capital needs, and that is not possible without a bond. And I would also say that that may not be possible to continue without potentially a capital override. And so we need to start thinking about what that might look like in future years. And as you all know, and as I know you were given an update within the last week or so, we're plaintiffs in the capital lawsuit. The judge has ruled that we're going to go to trial, and so that's going to begin, and we're going to see how that plays out. That will take time. It will take more time, but at least we're moving in the right direction. And as you saw that judge's ruling, he shot down some of the state's arguments, and I think that's a good indicator of where we're going potentially. Again, school finance reform this morning, as Ms. Scottabile pointed out, the legislature enacted its final budget for school districts for public education. We will recalculate the revenue control limit, the M&O override, and the additional assistance, and we'll provide you that information at the July 14th board meeting. ESSER 3 funds are critical to maintaining solvency. Without those federal dollars, we would not have been able to meet some of those challenges last year and this year and in subsequent years. Mr. President, members of the board, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board at this time? Proposed budget is always a shot in the dark, so thank you for your efforts. All right. With that, is there a motion to adopt the proposed expenditure budget?
I'll make a motion to adopt the expenditure budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023 as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. All right, moving on, future meetings and events. Are there any changes to proposed upcoming agendas?
Mr. President, members of the board, I believe the strategic plan meeting that was scheduled for July 14th is being moved to July 28th, so just please make a note of that. I believe that the July 14th meeting, we have the public hearing, we have Mr. Bramer with Applied Economics. I think that's going to be a heavy agenda potentially, so I think some of that's getting moved and shifted to the July 28th on that strategic meeting.
Are there any other items the members would like to add added to a future agenda? All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Berrigan, in absence of Ms. Sagata-Jones, why don't you tell us what's good?
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Sagata-Jones wanted you to check out her Twitter, and on her feed, she has posted pictures of our promoted eighth graders from Menzendick who are visiting Washington, D.C. I think it's a fun trip. I think it's a packed agenda. It's just an exciting event, and so please check it out on her Twitter. The other thing that we want to mention is that Ms. Katie Sauch was featured in the magazine of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I'm going to pass this around. She's been quoted in there, and we're just proud that our staff members are in a position to be quoted in something like this, and so we're really proud of that, and so we would encourage you. We'll pass this around and take a look at it. And Mr. President, members of the board, that concludes Superintendent Sagata-Jones's report.
All right, thank you. Ms. Smith, welcome back. Do you have any updates for us today?
Well, I hope it rains. Actually, at the last meeting that I missed, I was actually up in Pine at a girls' camp, and it rained one of the evenings that we were there. And I just want you to know that there was no mud because it was so dry. It just soaked right back into the ground. So, other than that, no, just hope everyone's enjoying their summer, and I hope everyone really is taking a break.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, nothing except hope you're enjoying your summer, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Ms. Bartels.
Well, as it turned out, my daughter is on that D.C. trip with the school she works for, and that was a surprise this week for her, and she's enjoying it. So I can't wait to hear what her students got to experience on the agenda. I just hope everybody is taking the time to make themselves healthy, mentally and physically, over the summer, and be careful of the monsoon storms that may or may not be happening right now outside this building.
All right, thank you. As for myself, I really don't have anything to share, but I would like to take a moment to apologize to Ms. Valadez for the way I treated her at the last meeting. It was unprofessional and unwarranted. I have nothing but the utmost respect for you as a person and what you do for this district. I am very, very sorry. I did get a chance to speak with Ms. Sagata-Jones last week, and we came to an understanding, maybe not necessarily an agreement, but we came to an understanding, and we did put it on a future meeting agenda, so we'll talk about it at the proper place and time. But I did want to, what I did publicly was not right, so I would like to apologize publicly for being the a-hole that I was, so I'm sorry. With that, I will end on a nicer note. I'm having my kids' bathroom remodeled at the house, and last Friday they started tearing out everything in the bathroom, the shower, the toilet, the sinks, whatever. And I got home from work, and I ran upstairs, and I looked at the guy like, oh my God, you're doing the wrong bathroom. And the look on his face carries me through to this day with a smile. I only let him hang for a little bit, but that's all I have for you. Thank you, everybody. Drive safe. If it's raining, great. Be careful in the rain. We will see you all next month on the 14th.
And I'll make a motion
Motion
to
to
adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great